It wasn't the text. It wasn't the perfume. It wasn't even the fact that she left the house, smiling while I sat there trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. It was the hoodie. My hoodie. The gray one I wore for 7 years straight. The one I spilled ramen on during our second apartment flood. The one she used to steal and sleep in when I worked late shifts. She wore that hoodie, my hoodie, when she left to go meet him. "Don't be jealous," she said with a laugh. Like it was a joke. Like I was the one being dramatic. Like I hadn't just watched my wife walk past me, toss me her empty coffee mug, and say she had a date tonight. A date. With another man. She didn't call it cheating. She didn't even call it a mistake. She called it refreshing. You ever feel a part of your body collapse silently? Like, no sound, no tear, no visible reaction. Just a quiet crumple in your ribs where your heart used to feel safe? That's what it felt like. I didn't say a word as the front door closed. I just stood in the hallway, staring at the empty mug like it was going to explain something. She used to tell me I make the best coffee in the world. Said it was my love language. Funny, huh? She drank it, smiled, then walked out wearing my hoodie to go be with someone else. It didn't start there, I know. It started long before. Before the dating app one wasn't supposed to see. Before the work trips that didn't line up with her calendar. Before the change in her phone password. It started with silence. That creeping, unspoken shift where "I love you" turns into "Did you take the trash out?" and "I missed you" turns into "Did you charge the dog's collar?" That's where people lose each other, not in shouting, but in that quiet indifference. But I hadn't realized how far we'd gone until tonight. Until she left. Until I opened her laptop. And what I saw next made me question not just her loyalty, but my sanity. The laptop was still warm when I opened it. She always closed it fast, like the screen would catch fire if I saw what was on it. I never pressed. I was the chill husband. I prided myself on being trusting. The kind of guy who didn't snoop. Who didn't nag. Who didn't check locations or scroll through texts like some insecure high school boyfriend. Congratulations to me, I guess. The screen flickered to life, no password needed. Her careless arrogance, or maybe some subconscious part of her wanted me to see. Like she didn't even bother to hide it anymore. Maybe that was the real betrayal. Not that she was doing it, but that she didn't fear losing me over it. A few tabs were still open. Google Docs. Calendar. An Instagram DM that made my hand go cold the second I read the name. Silas. I don't know anyone named Silas. She definitely didn't. At least, not until recently. The conversation was short, but it was enough. Silas. Can't stop thinking about you in that hoodie. Nadine. You'll see it again tonight, winking face. Silas. You wearing anything under it? Nadine. Guess you'll find out. Guess he would find out. I closed the laptop. I sat there, completely still, as if my body would break into pieces if I moved. The silence in the house was heavy. Our dog, Milo, lay under the table chewing on the edge of his bed, completely oblivious to the psychological demolition happening 3 feet away. I should have been angry, furious, but the only thing I felt, and I mean truly, completely felt, was humiliation. Not even from the cheating. From the fact that I had known something was wrong for months and did absolutely nothing. I remembered back in April, when she came home with a cracked phone screen. Said she dropped it getting out of the Uber. I offered to fix it. She said no. Bought a new phone the next day. Just like that. That's not normal. That's not how she usually acted. But I let it go. I didn't ask. Or that weekend, she said she was going to her sister's cabin for a girls' weekend, but came back with a tan line around her neck, the kind you only get from a necklace you weren't wearing when you left. Every red flag was flying high and proud, and I just kept folding laundry like an idiot. I walked into the bedroom, opened her top drawer. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Evidence. Clarity? Maybe just pain. Something sharp and immediate that would make this feel real instead of like a nightmare I was watching from outside my own body. That's when I saw it. A folded receipt. Hotel name at the top. Date from 3 weeks ago. Room service charges. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of red wine. Extra towels. I could barely breathe. I laid it on the nightstand like a dead insect. I didn't want to touch it anymore. That tiny slip of paper hurt more than anything she'd ever said to me. Because it was proof that this wasn't some sudden decision or moment of emotional confusion. She'd planned this. She'd packed for it. Booked it. Shared wine and towels with another man while I sat at home thinking she was binge-watching Netflix with her sister. And still I wasn't mad. I was numb. But numb is dangerous. Because numb gives you time to think. And when I think too much, I start asking questions I shouldn't ask. Like, what did she tell him about me? Does he even know I exist? Did she wear my hoodie that night too? And the one that cut the deepest. Was there ever a version of this where she actually loved me? Or was I just something she grew out of? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at the mug she handed me earlier that evening, wondering if it was all a performance. The coffee, the laugh, the hoodie, her entire life with me. By the time I heard her car pull back into the driveway, 1:42 a.m., I had made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to accuse her. I was going to play dumb. Because now, I needed answers. Real ones. No more guesswork, no more hoping. And the only way to get them? Let her think she's still in control. When she walked back in, she was humming. Not a song I recognized. Just a lazy, tuneless hum like she'd just come from a massage or yoga class. She set her keys down on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and said, "You're still up?" Like I'd just been watching TV all night waiting for her. I played along. "Yeah," I said, pretending to scroll through something on my phone. Wasn't tired. She walked past me and opened the fridge. Poured herself a glass of orange juice, the fancy kind she buys when she's trying to reset her gut. She took a long sip, then leaned against the counter, casually looking me over. There was no guilt. None. Just that same effortless calm she used to have when she'd come home from running errands. I asked good night. She paused for a second, maybe half a second, then nodded. "Yeah, super chill. We just talked. Honestly, I needed it." We. She said it like I knew who she meant. Like it was obvious. Like it didn't matter. I looked at her and smiled, just enough to hide the part of me that wanted to scream. "That's good. You deserve that." She smiled back. That kind of small, smug smile people give when they think they've just gotten away with something. Then she said, "You're not mad?" I shook my head. "No. Why would I be?" She studied me for a moment. Something in her expression flickered. Maybe suspicion. Maybe curiosity. But she let it go. She kissed me on the cheek, lightly, absently, and said, "I'm gonna shower." And then she left the room. I listened to the water start upstairs. I waited until I heard the door click shut behind her. Then I stood up, walked to the counter, and picked up her keys. One of the keychains had a hotel tag. A real one. From the same hotel as the receipt I found earlier. I ran my thumb over the edges of the tag, suddenly aware of how fast my heart was beating. She was either sloppy or confident. Probably both. She thought I was soft, passive, harmless. Maybe I was. Until now. Because at that moment, standing there in the middle of our spotless kitchen, holding evidence she didn't even bother to hide, I realized something. She had no idea I'd already started tracking everything. And soon, I'd find out more than just the name Silas. I'd find out the truth. All of it. For the next 3 days, I didn't mention the hoodie, or the hotel tag, or the DM from Silas. I just let her lie to me. Over and over again. It was easier than I thought it would be. She wanted me to believe her so badly. She basically did all the work for me. She told me she was meeting a new client on Thursday. She said she had to work late on Friday. Something about selecting tiles for a kitchen remodel. I nodded through every word, asking just enough fake interest questions to seem engaged. I even made her lunch before she left, packed it in a little container with a napkin that had her name on it in Sharpie. I wanted her to feel safe, untouchable, like I was still that same dopey, trusting idiot she married. She had no idea I'd already created a second Apple ID, installed tracking software on her iPad, and cloned her email to a decoy inbox. That's the funny thing about betrayal. Once you get past the first wave of pain, you stop bleeding and start hunting. On Thursday night, she texted me at 6:42 p.m., running late. "Don't wait up, Red Heart." I replied, "All good. Be safe." Meanwhile, I was watching her phone's location drift slowly into the city, toward a boutique hotel with rooftop dining and a spa. Not a single tile sample in sight. She stayed there for 4 hours. At one point, her phone disconnected from the Wi-Fi, and I nearly punched the wall. But then it reconnected, and I caught a photo auto-uploaded from her gallery. Just one. It was a photo of wine glasses clinking. 2 hands. One was hers. The other was a man's, slightly older looking, heavy gold ring on the index finger. No face. But I didn't need one. I had what I needed. Later that night, She came home smelling like lavender soap and cheap cologne. Not the kind she buys for me. Something sharper, muskier, unfamiliar. She kissed me on the top of the head and said, "Work was rough." Then she took off her heels and went upstairs. I sat in the dark kitchen for another hour, staring at my laptop. At that point, I wasn't even sure what I wanted anymore. Proof? Revenge? A confession? None of those would give me back what she'd already stolen. The version of our life I thought was real. That night, I drafted an email to Silas. I didn't send it. Not yet. But I wrote it, just to see how it felt. Subject line: thought you should know. Body: 2 sentences. 1 photo. No threats. No drama. Just truth, packaged quietly, like a time bomb. I saved it in drafts. For now, I wasn't going to blow anything up just yet. I needed to know what she was hiding next. Because something told me, this wasn't just about cheating. This was bigger, and I was getting close. It started with small things. The way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Not curious, not suspicious exactly, more like she was searching for something. Like she was trying to figure out whether I knew. But of course, I didn't give her anything. That was the point. She asked me twice that week if I was okay. Once in the morning, while brushing her teeth. Once late at night, while scrolling on her phone. Both times she didn't even look at me when she asked. Just a casual, flat, "You good?" Like she was checking off a box. I told her I was fine. Tired. Work stress. Nothing unusual. But then she started doing something strange. She began locking her phone. Now, that might not sound like a big deal. Lots of people do. But she hadn't done it in over 4 years. Ever since she dropped it in the sink and I set it up again for her. We used to joke that we were unhackable because we had nothing to hide. So when I noticed she'd suddenly set up Face ID again, I didn't say anything. I just logged into the mirrored account I'd created and waited for the next clue. It came 2 nights later, at exactly 11:13 p.m. She had just come back from grabbing drinks with coworkers. Her heels clicked softly on the tile as she walked in, humming again, always humming, like it made everything innocent. I watched her walk past the living room and head straight for the stairs. She didn't even ask if I was awake. A minute later, I got the notification. New voice memo uploaded. I opened it immediately, heart racing. It was short, only 14 seconds long. I tapped play. It was muffled at first, like her phone was in her pocket, but then I heard her laugh. That soft, slow, almost flirty laugh she used to save just for me. Then a man's voice, low, right next to her mic. "You really think he doesn't suspect anything?" Silence. A pause. Then her voice, quiet, almost a whisper. "If he knew, I'd already be gone." I sat there, frozen. Those words, they weren't just cheating. They were calculation. She didn't sound scared. She didn't sound conflicted. She sounded cold. Like she'd already played this out in her head. Like she had an escape plan ready. And that's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't about an affair anymore. This was something else. A life she was building without me. In secret, while pretending everything was fine. That's when I knew I had to stop watching from the shadows. I couldn't just collect evidence. I had to use it. Not recklessly. Not with anger. Strategically. Because if she was planning a clean exit, if she really thought I'd just disappear quietly, she was about to find out how wrong she was. That weekend, I did something that made my hands shake while I did it. I left a clue. Not a big one. Small enough that she could dismiss it if she wanted to. But clear enough to plant a seed of doubt in her mind. I opened her nightstand drawer and left it half an inch ajar. That drawer is sacred to her. She checks it without realizing. Every time she walks past. Every night before bed. It holds her private little world. Skincare samples. Journals she never lets me read. A burner phone I'm sure she thinks I haven't noticed. I've never touched it. Until now. She noticed. I heard her pause in the bedroom while I was in the kitchen pretending to clean the sink. No words, just silence, like her brain needed an extra moment to calculate. She didn't ask me about it. Of course she didn't. That's how I knew it worked. The next day, she was nice to me. Too nice. Morning coffee already made, plate of eggs the way I like them, runny yolk, crusted edges, hot sauce on the side. She sat across from me like a stranger trying to pass for a wife. I played my part. Thanked her, smiled, kissed her forehead like I always did before I knew she was lying to me every day. But I watched her hands. She was fidgeting, something I hadn't seen in months. That same afternoon, I made another move. I printed one photo, just one, from the dozens I'd collected from her iCloud sync. Not the hotel, not the dinner. I printed the picture of her sitting in someone else's car, looking directly at the camera, her hand on the thigh of someone cropped just out of frame. I left it in the mailbox. No note, no envelope, no explanation. I stood at the window and waited for her to come back from her yoga class. She pulled into the driveway at 5:38 p.m., sunglasses still on even though the sky was already turning gray. I watched her walk to the mailbox. She pulled everything out casually, bills, flyers, the photo. She froze. She flipped through it once, then again. Then she looked straight at the house. Not panic, not guilt, calculation. That scared me more than anything else. Because for the first time, I realized she wasn't just cheating on me. She was treating me like an opponent. Like this was chess. And I'd just made a move that forced her to admit she's not the only one playing anymore. She came inside quietly and didn't say a word about the photo. Instead, she kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted to watch something. I said sure. We sat next to each other on the couch watching a documentary about unsolved disappearances while she scrolled on her phone behind a cushion, probably texting him, probably telling him something had shifted. She had no idea I'd already cloned her second phone, too. And what I'd found there was worse than I expected. Because it turns out Silas wasn't the only one. There was a second phone. I'd known about it for a while. The one she thought she was slick hiding inside the lining of her old purse in the back of our closet, behind a stack of unused throw pillows. She powered it down after every use, like that made it invisible. But tech's funny like that. It always leaves traces. Especially if you're not as careful as you think you are. It wasn't Silas that broke me. It was what I saw under a different contact. A name I didn't recognize, just an initial and a city. Omaha. A full thread of texts, mostly short, weirdly businesslike, almost rehearsed. But buried halfway down was a message that read, "You're not backing out now, are you?" That wasn't the plan. And her reply, "He's starting to notice. I'll handle it." Handle it. Not talk to me. Not explain. Handle. Like I was a loose end. I didn't know who he was. I still don't. But in that moment, I stopped thinking like a betrayed husband and started thinking like someone being set up for something. You know that feeling when you're watching a thriller and suddenly you realize you're not watching the good guy win. You're watching the trap close around him in real time? That's what this felt like. My own life, suddenly framed like I was walking blindfolded towards something that wasn't just about infidelity anymore. The next morning, she asked if I wanted to go away for the weekend. Just like that. No build-up. No warning. I was making toast, and she stood in the doorway like it was a casual offer. "You and me," she said. "We've been off lately. Thought it might be good to get away. Clear our heads." I turned toward her slowly, trying not to show anything. "Where?" I asked. "There's a cabin near the lake. Remember the one we almost booked for our anniversary last year? That place." I nodded. "That's a good idea." But inside, I wasn't hearing anything except that one text again. "He's starting to notice. I'll handle it." That night, I went into the garage after she fell asleep. I stood in the dark, surrounded by the quiet smell of old cardboard, paint cans, and stale lawn equipment, and stared at the back wall where we kept our camping gear. There was a hatchet, a small survival kit, ropes, flashlights, things you'd never look at twice, things that meant nothing, until someone asked you to drive to a cabin in the woods when they think you're suspicious. I wasn't scared, not in the way you'd think. I was aware, hyper-aware, like every second was sharpened. Every breath, every casual glance from her, every laugh that came half a second too late. She was planning something. That much I was sure of now. But she had no idea I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was waiting. The night before the cabin trip, I lay next to her pretending to sleep. Her breathing was steady, peaceful even. Mine wasn't. By then I'd seen enough. The texts, the hidden phone, the receipt, the voice memo, the unfamiliar names, the patterns. But what haunted me more than any of that was how easily she adapted. The way she adjusted her smile. How she could ask if I wanted pancakes in the morning after spending the night with someone else. It wasn't just betrayal. It was performance. And I'd been an audience of one. But the thing is, I stopped needing answers. Somewhere along the way, all the questions I'd obsessed over became irrelevant. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need a breakdown. I didn't need her to cry, or apologize, or tell me she regretted anything. What I needed was out. So the next morning, As she loaded up her weekend bag and asked if I wanted to stop for coffee on the way to the lake, I smiled and said, "Actually, I think you should go alone." She blinked. "What? You said it's to clear your head," I said. "Maybe that's something you should do without me." She froze. For once, she didn't have a rehearsed answer. "Are you serious?" I nodded. Calm. Not angry. Not emotional. Just done. "I'm not going," I said, my voice steady. "I won't fight. I won't dig. I won't stop you from doing what you want. But I'm not pretending anymore." She stood there, holding her bag by the strap, mouth slightly open, like someone who walked into a room expecting control and found none. She left 10 minutes later. I watched her drive away from the porch. No tears. No grand declarations. She didn't beg me to come, didn't argue. Maybe she was relieved. Maybe she'd already been living a life without me, and I'd simply caught up to the truth. The second the car disappeared down the street, I walked back inside and opened a folder I'd been building quietly for weeks. Screenshots, printouts, backup logs. Nothing threatening, just truth. Clean, organized, timed. I sent one email. Not to her, not to Silas, not to E, but to my lawyer. By Monday, I'd filed. No dramatic confrontation. No explosive blowout. Just the quiet, legal end of something that had already died long before either of us admitted it. A few weeks later, I moved into a small place across town. Nothing fancy, a little quiet apartment above a bookstore with creaky floors and terrible parking. But it felt like mine. I started sleeping again. I started eating again. I picked up my guitar for the first time in 2 years. Milo, our dog, came with me. She didn't fight that part. Maybe she knew he deserved peace too. Sometimes people ask if I ever got closure. If she ever explained herself. No, and I don't need it. Because the truth is, walking away was the closure. Choosing peace over chaos. Choosing self-respect over control. Choosing a future, even an uncertain one, over a lie I was being forced to live inside. And that, in the end, was the win. Not revenge. Not proof. Just freedom.